So my wife Katie and I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. And just this week, my 3-year-old asked me a question that I'm terrified is going to become a common question in our home. It is the question, why? You remember that? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? Why do I have to share with my sister? Why do I have to eat at the dinner table? You know, this can be a frustrating question, but this can be a really cool question. This can be a question that leads to discovery and excitement and exploration and investigation, and that's what I hope you find today with our question. Because I'm going to start us out with a question here, and the question is, why do we celebrate Christmas? Now you're like, well, I'm in church. This is an obvious one. I know why we celebrate Christmas. But maybe you don't know, or maybe you're thinking, well, I don't know, this is what I've always done. Or I celebrate Christmas because, that's what my parents did, or it's fun, or I like gifts. But I'm in church, so, the right answer is always Jesus, right? And so I celebrate Christmas because of Jesus, and that's why I celebrate Christmas. It's his birthday. And that's true, and that's right, and that's good. But the question is that I want us to explore is why. Let's dig a little deeper into that. Why are we celebrating on Christmas? I'm assuming you're here today to begin your Christmas celebration, a celebration that's going to culminate in family and friends and food and gifts tomorrow night. It's easier for all of us to make it so that we miss Christmas, though. It's easy to make all of that stuff, all of those things can get in the way really easily. So I thought it'd be good to start our Christmas celebration by remembering why we're celebrating. This is going to be an interesting message because I don't know if you've noticed, but every time I pull this thing up, it goes down. Have you noticed that? So it's going to be distracting for you and for me, but that's just the way it goes. See? There it goes. And if you notice, there's no way to tighten it. I don't know what's going on here, but oh well. Let's just do this. There we go. That won't be distracting. So God did something very unique and very special that first Christmas. And what he did is not a fairy tale. It's not a legend or a myth. What he did actually happened. What he did with real people in a real place, on a place that you could get in a plane and fly 20 hours to, and you could land there in the place where all of this stuff happened. You could see, you could walk the same places, you could stand under the same sky as the place where Jesus was born, as the place where the first Christmas was. But what I want you to have in mind as we continue is that while he did these things for real people with real people, he also had all of us real people in mind that first Christmas. So what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at 3 passages that help us dig a little deeper into what did God actually do on that Christmas, and how should I respond? How should Christmas, what should the message of Christmas, how should that cause me to respond as a result? Now, the passages we're going to look at were written 2,700 years ago. That doesn't mean they're any less true. Just because they're old doesn't mean they're untrue. They are true. But the point of these passages that I want you to think through is that 2,700 years ago, when these words were written, they were written to a people that were not having the best of times. There was war and rumors of wars. There was national insecurity at the time. There was very present danger all around the people. The leaders were reckless. The leaders were untrustworthy. Social injustice was rampant all across the land. Religion at the time was very weak, and it had very little in the way of answers for people who had real questions and real struggles. People were looking for life and hope and happiness and everywhere else and in everything but in God. He created life and hope and happiness, but people weren't looking there. These words were written to people who like many who might be here now. People who ignore God, people who were just fine not having him in their lives except for maybe a few holidays in the year. And if that's you, it's no accident that you're here today. It's no accident that you're hearing this. These words were written to people who were sitting in a country that had left God and who were feeling the effects of that. Let's take a look at the first one here. The first passage we're going to look at is in Micah 5:2. Into a dark and hopeless group of people, into a dark and hopeless context, these first words written by a guy named Micah with a book that's named after him. He says, "O Bethlehem, but you, O Bethlehem, Ephrathah," that's like the county that separates this Bethlehem from another one, this specific Bethlehem. You are too little to be among the clans of Judah. From you shall come forth for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose coming forth is from of old, from ancient days. Bethlehem is a lot like where I live. I live out in the boonies in Queen Creek, Santan Valley area, small podunk, no influence on anything in the area. It's like those small towns that if you're driving cross country, you just blaze through before you can count to 10, and they're gone. That's like Bethlehem, small town, no influence, minor, nothing. And God says, in this small, nothing town, I'm going to do something of worldwide significance. I want you to notice those words, the one who. The one who is going to come from Bethlehem, it says in that passage up there, is from ancient days. This is the strongest possible statement of infinite length of time in the Hebrew Bible. This speaks of eternal existence, not having a beginning. This speaks that the person coming from Bethlehem, who would be born in Bethlehem, would actually be God. This ruler who would be born in Bethlehem would be the oldest person ever born. So the first thing we learn about Christmas is not just the exact location of the first Christmas, but we learn that Christmas is very unique and it is very special for this first reason, that God came to us. Think about that. God came to us. Bethlehem is not a galaxy far, far away. Bethlehem is a real place that you can get to in a plane, like I said. It's a 20-hour flight away. But he didn't just come to Bethlehem. By coming to Bethlehem, he came into our world. And by coming into our world, he came to us. People saw him with their own eyes. People interacted with him. They heard his words. They touched him. They interacted with him. In fact, Jesus said this. He said that I was sent here. I was sent here. Listen to the way he put this. John 6:38, he says, I've come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. In John 8:42, he says, if God were your father, you would love me, for I came from God, and I am here. I came not of my own accord, but he sent me. According to Jesus, he existed before he was born. According to Jesus, he came from heaven here to come. He came here. And as Micah put it, he came from ancient days. He wasn't born like all of us are. He came here because he was sent here. The one who came here that first Christmas, the one who was born in a stable, the one who was surrounded by animals, was God. Now, it might be easy for you to disregard me. I'm just some preacher, but don't disregard him. He said he was alive before he was born. He said it, and then he was sent here, and he was sent here. When he was sent here, he came to us. Now, you might be saying, well, why? Why did he do that? Well, that's our next passage, written by a guy named Isaiah, who also, writing 700 years before Jesus was born, gives us a little more insight into why Jesus came here. Isaiah 7:14, therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. There's no understanding Christmas without understanding Emmanuel. What does that mean? Well, Matthew tells us. If you don't know who Matthew is, Matthew was a tax collector who converted and actually died for his commitment to Jesus. So he went from a money-loving God-hater to a God-loving, loving God so much I will die for him kind of person. So he writes a book also with his name attached to it. And he tells us that Emmanuel means God with us. This is more than like, Jesus take the wheel, Jesus be with me, or I'm going to go do something. This with speaks of being together. This with speaks of becoming human and living among us. So not only on the first Christmas do we learn that God came to us, but second, we learn that God came to be with us. He came to be with us. It's one thing for God to come to us, but he could come to us for a bunch of reasons, right? If I were to say, God's coming to you, wouldn't you think like, well, why? Why is he coming to me? Is he coming just to say hi? Does he want something from me? Did I do something wrong? Is this going to be a good meeting or a bad meeting? Is he coming to just observe us like a scientist? Is he coming like a bill collector? He wants to get something from us. Is he coming like a warrior to fight us? Why did he come to us? It isn't like the God of the Bible that we read about in the Bible is just indifferent to what's going on down here. I mean, he created us, he owns us, but we kind of just ignore him most of the time. We give his rules, yeah, whatever. We break his rules, and he's given us every single good thing that we have. We expect his goodness, we even demand it, so much so that when we don't receive his goodness, when something bad happens in our life, we actually become angry, bitter, and resentful toward him. But if we think about it, if we treated our parents the way we treated God, then they'd disown us. Or if we treated our government the way we treated God, they'd throw us in jail. His coming to us is not automatically good news, in other words, until we hear Isaiah say that he came to us so that he would be with us. Think about this. If you're honest, hearing the words, God wants to see you, doesn't probably fill you with like, oh, great, I'm excited, right? God wants to see you. Probably going to fill you with some fear. But no one's afraid of a baby, right? If God wanted to draw us to himself so we'd be with him and we'd love him, then coming here as a baby is genius. Most of us are drawn to babies. No one in their right mind runs away screaming from a baby. If God wanted to be with us so he could know us, then again, coming here as a baby is genius. Most of us love when babies know us, right? When they finally recognize us. When you can see that moment of interaction, when you know that baby knows me. That creates joy in us. We like that. And if God wanted to be with us so we'd be intimately related to him, then again, coming as a baby is genius. Most of us love to hold babies and be close to babies. Now, that's not a plug to be in our nursery, although we need help in that. But this is why we celebrate Christmas. This is why Christmas became a celebration, not because God came to observe us or because he wanted something from us or to punish us for all our crimes. He came to be with us. He came to draw us close to him. He came to be intimately acquainted to us so that he would love us and so that we would love him. This is why we celebrate Christmas. This is why Christmas is unique and special. God came to us to be with us. Isaiah has one more thing to say to help us understand why Christmas is so unique and special. We looked at it last week. We look at it again here. It says, For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Now we looked at each one of those names last week, but this week I want to focus your attention on just two words, to us. To us. Twice those words are used. It's almost like God really wants us to see those words, to us. This child wasn't born just to his parents. He was born to all of us. Like a gift at Christmas, this son was given to us. In other words, Christmas is unique and special and worthy of celebration because at Christmas, God came not just to us or to be with us, but at Christmas, God came for us. That's what these words mean in Hebrew. The words to you mean for you, for your benefit. This child was born, the son was given to bless us, to do good to us. God came for us that first Christmas to save us, to rescue us by being our substitute. That baby grew up and he lived a life of perfect obedience. The kind of life that none of us would ever live, would ever want to live, and a kind of life that none of us have lived. Not even the best Christian, not even the best person on the planet lived the life that Jesus lived. He didn't need grace. He didn't need mercy. He didn't need God to be patient with him. He didn't need God to be long-suffering with him. God said about him, I am well pleased with him. 100% of Jesus' life, well pleased. And he didn't do that first and foremost to be our example. He said it himself, I did this to be your substitute. He put it this way, I was born not to be served, but to serve. And to give my life, my sinless, 100% perfectly pleasing to God life, I gave that life as a ransom for many. His perfect life for our sin-filled lives. The name he was given at his birth was Jesus, and that word Jesus, that name Jesus, means salvation. Give him the name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. He came to live the life we'd never live in perfect obedience to God. He came to die the death we all deserve for our perfect disobedience to God. The God who's given us life and breath and everything else. The God who became a baby. The God who said, I want to be with you. He came to rise again to show any honest inquirer that he's defeated death, God's accepted his sacrifice, he's accomplished every single thing we would ever need to be in heaven with God forever. He came to us to be with us so he could rescue us and be with us forever. Let me say that one more time. Christmas, we celebrate Christmas because Jesus came to us to be with us so he could rescue us so that we would be with him forever. 1873, a priest named Father Damien. Have you heard of this guy? Sent to the lepers on the Hawaiian island of Molokai. For 12 years, he tried to minister to these people. He built a church and was holding services that nobody came to for 12 years. So frustrated after 12 years, he decided, I'm going to go home. And so he goes to the dock to wait for the next ship to take him home. And as he's standing waiting for the boat, he notices that he can't feel his finger. And he looks down and he sees some white chalky stuff on his hands. And he realized what's just happened. He's caught leprosy. So he knows the only thing he can do now. He can't go home. So he stays. He stays and he keeps ministering, but only now the people understand that he didn't just come to them, and he's not just with them, he's now become one of them. And the interesting thing about that is that Sunday, the church was packed. There were people, hundreds of them, lining the walls and sitting on the floors. They wanted to hear what this man had to say because he was no longer with them. He didn't just come to them, he was now one of them. Jesus didn't just come to us. He wasn't just here to be with us. He became one of us on Christmas Day. See, he could only really be here for us to rescue us if he became one of us. In other words, he had to die for us. He had to rise for us. He had to do everything that we needed to be rescued so that we could be with him forever. We couldn't ultimately be with him if he didn't do that. So the question to leave you with is, has he come for you? If this child was born for you, then you've got to be born to him. In other words, you've got to be born again. Only those who are born again can claim that God came for them that first Christmas. Jesus said, unless you're born again, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. And either he's right or he's wrong. I don't know about you, I never want to be on the opposite side of an argument with Jesus. I never want to be like, yeah, Jesus, I don't agree with you. Really not a smart thing to do. So you might ask, well, how do I know if I'm born again? Here's the first way you know. You're not the same person anymore. You're a new creation. You know that there was a first you, and you're not that you anymore. You are the complete opposite of that you. You've been renewed. You've been transformed. So the question is, has there been a change in you? Are your loves the opposite of what they used to be? Are the things that you despise the opposite of what they used to be? Do you hate the sinful things that you once loved? If God has come for you, then not only are you born again, but your life has changed. You're different. There must be a change on the outside, or there's been no change on the inside. Jesus said a good tree bears good fruit, a bad tree bears bad fruit. It's really simple. If people watched you, would they be compelled to say, this man or this woman is not who they used to be? Would your friends or your family, would they see that change in your life? The truth about whether or not we're saved has nothing to do with how we feel or any of that stuff. It has to do with our lives. Are they changed? And how we live comes from the core of who we are. And from that core, we've changed. See, at the core, before God comes to us, before he comes to us, the very core of ourselves is ourselves. It's us. We seek our pleasure, our advancement, our glory. We can even be very religious and doing all these religious things, going to church on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and going to church every day and giving 10% and serving the poor and all of those things and not be changed. If at the very core, we're doing it all for ourselves. But when God has come for you, God has come for you personally. Grace changes us at the core. So now that we long to live for God, we want to please God. We want to honor him. We want to make him look good with our choices and with our actions and with the decisions that we're making. We want to make him look good with our whole lives. Not because we add anything to his glory, but because he's glorious. We, like mirrors, reflect his glory, reflect his greatness in the choices that we make. So after that examination, can you say, in all honesty, I'm convinced God has come for me personally? Know this, the baby, to come to you, you must become like a baby before him. You can't come to God with pride and demands. You must come to him like a baby, helpless and weak, recognizing you're the creature and he's the creator, recognizing that you're the criminal and he's the judge, that you're lost and he needs to find you. You must come to him like a baby who's needy and dependent. You bring nothing to the table with this transaction. It's not like, okay, God, you've got this salvation thing, and I've got some good works that I did, and let's barter here. I'll give you my good works, and you give me salvation. Everything's good, right? That's not how it works. We bring nothing to the table but our sin, and Jesus brings everything to the table that we could possibly need to be saved. Babies need their parents for everything. They contribute nothing. They're 100% dependent on their parents for everything, and that's how you come to God, 100% dependent on him for everything. Everything you need to save you. If you want to talk to someone about this, there will be people up here who will talk with you and help you and pray with you after the service. So the God of the universe at Christmas time, that first Christmas, he came to us. He really did. He didn't stand back and say whatever with those people. He came to us. And when he came to us, he came to be with us. But he knew he couldn't be with us completely. So he came for us. He came to rescue us so that we would be with him forever. That's what we're here celebrating on Christmas. And that's what I hope you're celebrating. This is the beginning of your celebration. This is the beginning of what I hope you're celebrating this Christmas. Let's pray. Jesus, what an incredible truth. What an incredible truth that despite how much the people that these words were written to had turned from you and wanted nothing to do with you and fought against you, in spite of all of that, you made these promises. Promises that spanned hundreds of years, reach back way before our minds can even reach, and yet span all the way into this very moment right now. That Christmas is all about Jesus coming to us to be with us by rescuing us. God, would you use that truth to encourage our hearts here? For those of us who know you and for those who don't know you, who are still wondering and have questions and struggling, may you make yourself real to them this Christmas. May you show yourself to be a wonderful counselor who knows every single thing we could possibly need. Would you show yourself to be strong and the mighty God who can do whatever needs to be done to rescue us? Will you be an everlasting Father to them? Will you show them care and protection and provision and love both now and into eternity? And will you be the Prince of Peace to them? Will you make peace between God and them by your death that they are hoping in and trusting in and depending 100% on? Would you do these things, please, I pray. In your name, Jesus, amen.